Back-to-school savings are officially in session at Tanger Outlets. Shop tax-free August 2nd through 6th and save up to 70% off the latest school styles. The best of apparel, footwear, accessories, and more. Save at Nike Factory Store, American Eagle, Gap Outlet, Crocs, Under Armour, Banana Republic Factory, and hundreds more. There's always something happening. Discover the latest fun and events all season long. Tanger Outlets, your savings destination.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Archaeo Animals. This is episode 5, and we actually have a very special, interesting episode today. We actually have a bit of a crossover episode that we did with Archaeological Fantasies that we recorded with Sarah from that podcast. It's me and Simona, and it's really exciting and awesome, so listen on for more. And then next episode will be our regular Archaeo Animals episode.
I am your host, Sarah Head, and I am joined today by my two special guests, Simona Falanga and Alex Fitzpatrick from the Archaeo Animals podcast on the APN. How's it going?
Hello.
Hello.
Exciting.
Hi.
Exciting intro.
It's all right. So you guys are one of the newer shows on the APN, and the APN is
The Archaeology Podcasting Network? Or Podcast Network. Podcast Network.
I think it's Podcast Network. I know, I always screwed it up when I was on there too.
Yeah, God forbid I actually know.
And you guys, you're Archaeo Animals. What do you mean by Archaeo Animals?
Just
want to take that?
What? Just very old animals that have been dead a few thousand years. Probably sometimes a little less.
Yeah, depends.
But I guess that we mainly discuss archaeology, so using essentially animal remains to reconstruct their lives, but also the lives of ancient populations, which is like a field that is talked about these days, but hasn't always been so. Oh my God. Okay, no, it's been a long day. Right.
Well, Simona's trying really hard not to fall apart into pieces, so that's understandable.
You're selling the podcast really well, Simona.
I'm fragile.
I know. You know I love you. It's fine. But yeah, I mean, Archaeo Animals is all the stuff that other archaeologists don't want to touch because they're scared of all these bone fragments, because you have to know, as an archaeologist, you have to know all different species, how they differentiate from each other, and it's basically doing the dirty work that no one else wants to do.
Hey now, I like animal bones, thank you very much.
Okay, so there's one person out there.
Thank you.
Shockingly.
Thank you.
The one we found her. We found the one archaeologist.
I love finding bones. I love animal bones. I don't particularly like finding human bones because that usually is a bad thing, but the animal bones are great because you can actually play with them. Like, you find a human bone and you're like, oops, well, time to close that one down and go find the authorities. But you find an animal bone and you're like, ooh, it's a pork.
You almost sound like a serial killer.
Yeah. This is where I confess to you that as a child I had a robust animal bone collection that my mother finally threw out when I went to college. So.
Aw, that's sad.
I know, I was so sad.
Well, you're talking to two adults that have animal bone collections, so.
I know, I'm kind of jealous. When I've talked to April Besaw, she does comparative animal bones freelance as well.
Yeah.
And so she's always going on about her collection. I'm just like, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, Simona's collection, I mean, Simona, you could talk about it, but like, she has a great collection. I'm just building mine up because obviously I moved from New York to the UK and only had like 2 suitcases worth of crap. So
we're both suitcases, nothing but bones?
No, just a bunch of summer clothes that I could not wear in England.
Why would you bring summer clothes? Yeah, summer is like my favorite day of the year in this country.
Yeah, no, I moved here with a bunch of summery clothes because New York's like, kind of warm, kind of cold, depending. And I had to throw them all out and buy new clothes. There was absolutely no point for me bringing them over.
That's funny. So, Simona, tell us about your animal collection.
Well, nothing too exciting because mainly consists of a bunch of domesticates, because that's what tends to turn up more often on archaeological sites here in Britain. So they tend to be I don't really get to use them per se on a professional level, because I'm a pretend zoo archaeologist, you see. So I'm really into zoo archaeology, and I've read extensively about it, and I've done professional development courses, and you name it, I've probably done it or tried it. But professionally, I'm actually just a plain old archaeologist in the commercial sector, or what in the US you'd call CRM. So
you work in the same field section that I work in, then, because I am a
just
CRM
commercial
archaeologist,
archaeology.
so we're kind of buddies. So we're kind of buddies. I think you get paid more than I do.
I wouldn't know, actually. I think I know the wage of...
See, we'll have the pay discussion when I get you guys on the Women in Archaeology show, because we've discussed that before, but it's my understanding you guys have a union, right?
Well, I don't think it's an archaeological union per se, but there is a union that I think has a section for archaeologists as well.
That's kind of neat. And Alex, you're going to school for this, right?
Yeah, I'm a PhD student, so I have nothing to add to this conversation, really.
No, you can add about the bones, but you're going to get your PhD in zoo archaeology, or
technically it's in archaeology, but I am, as of now, I believe I am the only zoo archaeologist doing any studies at the department in the University of Bradford, because no one wants to do it, I guess.
It's a unique spot for you to fill. You just finished a really cool project, though, where you broke your arm in a cave, didn't you?
I did. Okay, I didn't break my arm. I thought I did.
I'm sorry.
So, just a little bit about what I'm doing is my research for my PhD is on the Cowsey Caves, which are located in Scotland, and finally went to go see the caves for the first time this past summer to excavate. Even though I told my supervisors I am afraid of heights and I also don't like enclosed spaces. But they're like, it's fine, it's fine. Meanwhile, these are caves where you have to climb down the side of a cliff to get to.
Oh, nice.
So, of course, day one, I'm walking across a bunch of boulders. I slip, I fall. And the whole day, I'm like, I can't feel anything in my arm. I'm freaking out. So they had me wear a sling and I couldn't dig at all. I was just sitting in a cold, dark cave watching everyone else dig. Then they took me to the hospital, and turns out nothing, like, it was fine. I just, like, hit a nerve, apparently. But my supervisor was like, we don't think you should come back to site. Maybe you'll just look at the faunal bone from our base camp. So that's what I did for a whole 3 weeks.
But you tweeted about the stuff you were looking at, though.
Yeah,
which I thought was really useful.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of bullied them into, because I'm like, as one of my supervisors kind of said, I'm like the hot young social media person, because no one else knows I use Twitter except for me. So they were just like, Alex, can you make a website for our project and also tweet about it? And I was like, yeah, and I'll also make a Facebook thing, whatever. Which ended up being really cool. I got a lot of engagement from it, but it's hilarious to talk to your supervisor who is a professor of archaeology and is like really esteemed and has like books and stuff, and be like, okay, so Twitter works like this.
Now, Simona, you work in the field. How often are you allowed to engage on social media from the field? It's like when I ask Ken this question.
In what way?
Do you have a Twitter?
I have a personal Twitter account, but I can really use it either if I'm on my break or outside of work times, because it's not at all work related. It's just my personal thing where I try and do a little bit of outreach.
Okay. Do you know if anybody, when you're digging, do they use Twitter at all?
Not really, as far as I'm aware, no.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Well, we're, over here, we're kind of like, it depends on the project if you're encouraged to use it or not. A lot of times I tell you, don't tweet from the field, or don't tweet anything that can let people know where you are.
No, because I guess there's a lot of problems that come with that, because I'm not sure about the US, but at least here in the UK, we've got a lot of problems with what we call night hawkers. So it's literally people that will come at night with metal detectors and dig stuff up and then sell it on, like that usual sort of stuff. So ideally, it's best not to identify what sort of sites you're working on and whatnot, right, because it could attract the wrong kind of crowd.
We call them pot hunters here, or just looters. So yeah, we've got those. Okay, so I got us way off topic because I'm just fascinated. But you guys are one of the newest podcasts on the APN. You're Archaeoanimals. You talk about zoo archaeology. You've got how many episodes under you now?
4? I don't know.
That's pretty good. So, like, are you guys doing bi-monthly or?
Just monthly now. I feel like we've been recording for so long, and yet we only have a few episodes out, Simona.
I'm not sure. Well, to be fair, we got 4 out, but I think we planned enough episodes to last us a lifetime.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that because we have episode plans for like the next couple of years, I think.
That's great, actually.
It's one of those
That'll be
things where you
useful.
start off and you think, oh, but once I cover the main domesticants and all that, that'll be it. What else could I cover? Oh, were we wrong? We just opened a Pandora's box of like just a plethora of topics and weird and wonderful things that we could come up with, and an episode is never enough. So we actually...
And we also have a bunch of people reaching out to us being like, oh, I'd like to come on if you're ever doing an episode about whatever. So we're like, well, okay, now I guess we're going to have to do an episode of that.
Oh man, having guests on is the best because you learn something new from each one of the guests. And like some of my guests, I just turn the show over to them for an hour and I'm like, this is great. I could have done this for 2 hours and it was just fantastic. It's like instant show. So you'll enjoy having your guests on, I think. So what made you guys decide that we needed a podcast about the bones of animals?
Well, I guess there was a gap in the podcasting community, because I think you have a few shows about archaeology, but then again, few and far between, unless I've been doing my Googling all wrong. But nothing really on zoo archaeology, and nothing, I guess, that's based in Britain, if you will. That
is true. There are not a lot of archaeology podcasts to begin with. The APN, I think, has the majority of them, but there are a few that are independent. And I honestly can't think of one that's from overseas. I'm sure there is one. I just can't think of it. So, yeah, it's nice that you guys are broadcasting out of the UK.
And I mean, I just like talking, so...
That's always fair.
But although the one thing that we're trying to do as well, of course, because both of our experience is based in Britain, so our examples will always go back to Britain no matter what. But we try not to keep it very Britain-centric. So with our guests or the topics that we like to discuss, we like to sort of branch out and get people from all over the world, because otherwise it just becomes like the zooarchaeology of Britain, which is personally not one particularly keen on. I'm not sure about Alex. She probably agrees with me, maybe, hopefully.
Well, you guys are where most of the domesticates came from, though, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, it does get a little boring. You can only look at so many sheep skulls and stuff and go, this is exciting.
But between the Iron Age and the Roman period, they get a little bigger.
Oh,
right.
It's funny you should mention sheep. I was working with a group in Virginia, and I was asking them, I was like, because they have a comparative sample there, but it's very limited. And I was like, what would you guys like for your comparative samples? And they're like, oh, we really need some sheep. So I was trying my damnedest to find some sheep bones for them.
I think I got CC'd into that. We got CC'd into that, I think. Steph, I can't remember her surname.
Canadian Steph?
Yes.
Canadian Steph. Yes, she's awesome. I know who you're talking about.
Yes, I think I got CC'd into that about sheep skulls, but unfortunately all the sheep skulls that I have are very useless in a way, because they've just been gifted to me, but I don't know what breed they are.
Ah.
So
I don't know. They didn't ask for a breed. They just said sheep. You mean all sheep are not sheep?
No.
It's just that some sheep breeds are very weird and look a lot like goats, and some have no horns, some have got like 4 horns. It's just weird. Weird things we do to animals. It's like, this sheep, no, I don't like them with just 2 horns. I want to breed them so they have 4 for no particular reason.
I mean, now I feel like we need to do a show on 4-horned sheep and the commonality of it being a demon skull, but...
Yeah.
How often has that sheep been found?
I have seen chupacabra skulls for sale on the internet, but really was just a skull of a muntjac deer. Now, I'm not sure if you've heard of muntjacs before, but they're a primitive form of deer that native to Southeast Asia.
All right.
Even though we've now have a wild population of them in the UK, because someone brought them over in the 1800s and thought it was a brilliant idea, and they spread. So we have them here now. They're very small, but the males have fighting teeth, so they'll have this big tusks that are essentially a product of sexual dimorphism, and they use them to let the bucks fight amongst each other using those. So the skulls look a bit like dragons. They're very peculiar skulls. But I saw one for sale saying like chupacabra skull, but I'm pretty sure that's a muntjac. But okay.
Wait, are you saying that you have chupacabra in the UK?
Yes.
No, it was just, no, that was just like some random thing on eBay that I spotted like years ago, and I was like,
No, we definitely have chupacabra. We have so much goats and sheeps here. Someone's got to eat them.
oh yeah.
I was just like, wait a minute, how do you have one of our cryptids?
No, I think like
We imported them.
Britain's got a fair few, but I think the main one is just alien big cats. Just people see panthers every 2 seconds. Like, oh, there's a leopard on the moors. No, there isn't. No, but I saw it. There's no scat to prove it. Calm down. It's fine.
There's an animal there. It's probably pooping.
Yeah,
Go
we're
poop
not.
animal.
What I've learned since moving here is the UK isn't as cool as America when it comes to.
Oh no, that's so sad.
It is sad. I was like, you don't have like the Jersey Devil. What the hell?
Well, you guys don't have as many cryptids, but you have fairies
Yes.
and little people.
And they'll have like
But that's not Mothman.
That's not Mothman.
no, but there's there's Owlman. We have Owlman. That's a thing.
Oh yeah, we do, don't we?
I feel like you're just making that
No, I
up.
think it's in the southwest. I think that's where Owlman comes from. No, there's a
What does he do?
probably just stand there and creeps on you like Mothman. Okay.
I think he's part of Parliament.
Apparently,
That's
it's also a DC character, but that's not what I'm on about. Man, folk.
I think he is a D. Who? Yeah, isn't he the one that runs? Anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
What was this podcast about?
Yes,
What are we talking about?
Owlman is a Cornish creature that
of
is
course.
presumed to have been seen around 1976.
Oh, that's pretty new, though. 1976. It's good. So, you are on here for a reason. And if our listeners haven't picked up on it, we are talking about cryptids, and then we will be talking about man-bear-pig.
Pig.
Because man-bear-pig is a thing, you people. It's a real thing. So,
Man Bear Pig is real, and he's strong, and he's my friend.
I heard that South Park actually has run 2 episodes now where they're apologizing for the whole man-bear-pig Al Gore thing.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I haven't watched them yet, but apparently they're apologizing for it. I was just like, that's funny. But so I feel like we should go to break real quick, and when we come back, we're going to talk about werewolf skulls and cryptid bones and all the things that are being suppressed from the public.
By me personally.
And I understand that since the UK doesn't have cryptids, we're going to mainly be talking about the cool stuff that's in America, because I guess for once we beat you. And I don't know
Not
if
me.
that's
I'm a child of both countries now.
I'm not British, so.
Yeah, she's technically.
What are you? I'm sorry. I don't know these things.
What are you? Sorry, that's so funny.
I'm Sicilian. It's just like my accent is ever so slightly deceiving because I've lived here for about like 8 years or something. So
It's weird, right?
I don't have anything that's probably radio friendly. I have a lot of jokes, but nothing that I really want to say out loud.
well, we are talking about animal bones, so I guess yeah, no, I'm not gonna make that joke.
Exactly. I'm like, I should probably not say
Wow,
that.
the rest of this podcast will be censored.
Have you heard my podcast? But yeah, let's go to break real quick, and when we come back, let's talk about cryptid bones.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
Back to school savings are officially in session at Tanger Outlets. Shop tax-free August 2nd through 6th and save up to 70% off the latest school styles. The best of apparel, footwear, accessories, and more. Save at Nike Factory Store, American Eagle, Gap Outlet, Crocs, Under Armour, Banana Republic Factory, and hundreds more. There's always something happening. Discover the latest fun and events all season long. Tanger Outlets, your savings destination.
Everyone, and we are back, and I still have Simona and Alex with me, and we are going to talk about cryptid bones. And if you are, I assume my listeners know what that means, but in case you don't, Cryptids are, I call them fake animals, but I'm sure there's some fancy lingo for them. Would one of you like to, Simona, would you like to crack what a cryptid is?
Why is it always me?
Your accent makes you sound like more formal.
Well, like I know what I'm on about.
Exactly.
I was going to say, you get yourself a pair of glasses and everyone's just going to assume you're just
She
like
does
the
have
smartest
glasses,
person.
that's the
There you
thing.
go.
I do.
You are the smartest person in the room, that's why.
Yeah, that'd be the cat. I guess a cryptid is what, an animal or a creature of sort whose existence is up for debate.
They're so real.
Depending on who you talk to, they're either the product of the human mind or just something that the elite are trying to hide from us.
That's true. We are trying to hide cryptids from everyone because reasons.
Because they're my friends.
Apparently, yes. So listeners might be familiar with things like Bigfoot, Mothman, what is that thing? The worm, the giant killer worm in South Africa, I think it is.
Yeah. I don't remember what it's called, but like I vaguely remember that. But then you got like the devil, you got
Right.
the Montauk monster, that thing that washed up.
I like the Wampus cat just because I like saying Wampus.
The Fiji mermaid.
And you have like drop bears in Australia. It's really terrifying little things.
Yeah, you guys have, I know we've talked about fairies before with Monster Talk. I think those qualify as cryptids because supposedly a mummified fairy was found a few years ago now? A couple years ago?
But of course.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, anything, I would say anything non-human, or, technically not fully human.
Yeah, but then I guess where do you draw the line? So, like, do you mainly call cryptids the ones that are sort of debated to this day, or like creatures that could not exist, or would you bring in creatures from folklore as well?
Well, I mean, technically, like, stuff like the American cryptids are all technically, like, urban folklore, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I would totally count folklore.
But then again, you have cryptids that are animals that were actually real, they've gone extinct, but people think they keep seeing them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Nessie fully qualifies as a cryptid.
The sort of thing, like, in their belief also that there's some parts of the world somewhere where there's populations of dinosaurs hiding somewhere. I'm pretty sure that's a thing.
Yeah, it's the center of the Earth because the Earth is hollow.
Yeah,
Is that where the lizard people live as well?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. If you're a Whovian, then yes, there are lizard people that also live in the center of the Earth. They ride the dinosaurs, I believe.
It's pretty badass.
I'm making that one up.
I mean, wouldn't you ride a dinosaur if it was there?
I mean, if my options are ride the dinosaur or get ate by the dinosaur, then yeah, I'm going to ride the dinosaur. But as we've hinted at, from time to time, evidence of these cryptids, in quote marks, comes to light. And you are professionals in this field of animal bones. How do you react when someone comes to you and says they have found evidence of a hippogriffin? Look, hippogriffins are cool, okay?
I go, hell yeah, obviously. Well, I mean, like, because, like, I'm obsessed with, like, cryptid taxidermy and stuff like that, because I'm also, like, one of my side obsessions is with, like, Americana roadside attraction culture. So, like, the sideshow, stuff like that. Like, P.T. Barnum, he brought over, like, the Fiji mermaid. Like, he introduced that into American culture. So those kind of cryptids are, like, my favorites. And honestly, if someone's like, hey, I found this thing, and they say it's, like, a dragon or, like, a hippogriffin or whatever, I want to see what it is, because it's either going to be a skull of, an actual creature that is just either turned upside down or, slightly deformed or something, or it's going to be a really cool taxidermy where someone just glued a dead monkey to a fish. So,
Why you gotta call out the Fiji mermaid like that?
I mean,
it is actually, if you've ever seen a picture of it, it is, like, hands down one of the weirdest damn things I've ever seen.
A little scary, to be honest, depending on how desiccated the monkey is.
Yeah, I mean, like, somebody, like, I read the description and they're like, it's a monkey attached to a fish, and I'm like, I will believe you that is a monkey if you say so.
I mean, that's how they got away with it,
Creepy damn thing. Simona, have you ever encountered cryptozoology in the field?
Not really.
Other than your chupacabras, which I think is awesome.
Not really. Aside from maybe if you find a horse skull and maybe like a cow horn hanging about somewhere, and you can just argue, oh, unicorn.
There you go.
But other than jest, no, alas.
When I used to work for one of the states, I worked in their state department. That made me sound a whole lot more official than I was, but the state archaeologist would get weird crap all the time because it's the state archaeologist. It's part of their job description, apparently. And we had a guy who it was insistent that he had a werewolf skull. And I think I've told this story before online, but when they went out to investigate it, I don't know if they went out there or if the guy drove the skull to them and was like, look at my werewolf skull. It's just a pig skull, like a wild pig skull that he has turned upside down. And no one could convince him that he was holding it the wrong way. And so it wasn't a werewolf, it was clearly a pig.
But even so, how would that work? 'Cause would his eyes be at the bottom?
That kind of makes sense to me, because it's kind of like how when people first saw elephant skulls, they thought, oh, that's a cyclops, because of the way the elephant skull is made. It's got that big gaping hole where if you're not really trained and you've never seen an elephant before, you'd be like, oh, that's where the eye socket is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I get it.
It's really just the trunk hole, it's the sinus.
Yeah. I mean, that said, I kind of wish I had a pig skull on hand to try to like turn it around and be like, okay.
Flip it around and be like, how are you
I was thinking the very same thing, but the only thing I've got at hand is the pig femur that the dog's currently playing with, and I'm not sure she'd be too keen if I snatched it off her.
Aww.
You're letting your dog gnaw on it?
Like, I don't get her bones so I can record the marks as she leaves on them. That's not why I do it. I just really love my dog, okay? I am like... I am not using it for experimental.
Honestly, I think that's brilliant. You know what? The dog's got to earn its keep, and I think its keep is leaving dog marks on bones. I think that's fine.
In all seriousness, I find it really interesting. So I try to give her bones like from the butchers or like different animals are in different age groups to see sort of how the marks differ. So.
Mm-hmm. See, that's interesting though, because that leads into my next question, which is, if someone were to bring you something and they say they have we'll go with hippogriff because I can't think of anything else. Like, I have a bone of a hippogriff. How would you go about looking at that bone to determine what it was?
Right.
Well, I mean, for the most part, when it comes to like, because that just comes down to your basic zooarch analysis, doesn't it? So it's kind of just, looking.
Not even that.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Why? What would you say then?
You just need to be good at comparing stuff.
Well, I mean, pretend like I don't know anything about zooarch or bone comparison or anything like that. Like, break it down for me step by step. How would you? And I don't mean like talk to me like I'm an infant, but
Oh yeah.
Maybe you should talk to me like I'm 5. How would you go about it? Like, I bring you a bone and I say, I have a werewolf skull. What's the first thing you do?
You throw it over your shoulder and you say, no, you don't.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well,
depending on who you talk to, lick it to make sure it's actually bone.
That is true.
I mean, it's a skull. It's clearly a bone of some variety. Though, if you want to lick it, I'm not going to stop you.
That just shows your dominance over the person who gave you the skull. You just, I know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
You make eye contact with them as you very slowly lick the skull. I mean, it's just make it as creepy and uncomfortable as possible. And you're like, it's not a werewolf.
Yeah, are you saying you guys do something different on your sites? Or
No, and then they run away. And then they run away. Problem solved.
They just leave.
But seriously, I mean, usually you basically just start like kind of either you do it in your head or if you're in the lab or something and you have a reference collection, you kind of just start holding stuff together. There's a lot of different species where you can kind of have like a feel for like, okay, so like dog skulls look like this usually, or like, sheep skulls kind of look like this usually. So you can usually kind of do it on the spot, but depending on how fragmented it is, stuff like that, you might need a
so you don't just know right off the top of your head what it is.
So I guess like how I would do it
depends.
Well, I think with practice, I think you would know it depending on how fragmented it is. But I guess if you're starting out from scratch, I guess the first thing you'll be looking at, and that's valid for a skull as much as for bones, try first to figure out sort of if the animal is, if it's a bird, a mammal, or a reptile, or whatever. And then from there, you just keep narrowing it down. So be like, okay, it's a mammal. And then a good way to, see sort of what order it may belong to. Okay, look at the teeth. So depending on the shape of the teeth, if they're sort of very flat and squared off, okay, it's a herbivore. If they're, sharp and pointy, okay, it's a carnivore. If it's a mix of both and it looks a bit weird and creepy, then it's an omnivore. I'll say if it looks like dangerously like human teeth, then that's a pig.
That's a fair point. That is a fair point. I mean, and we'll come back to that too, because later on we're going to talk about bones that look human that aren't. And yeah, pig teeth really. I gave somebody a heart attack one time in the lab by joking with them. It's pretty funny, actually. Still funny to this day. Throwing a pig tooth at them and saying, "I think I found a human tooth," and they ran with it because they didn't know any better. It was so good. Anyway, I know it was mean.
But pig teeth are kind of easy because if it looks like a molar that's been put in a microwave and it exploded like a popcorn, that's how I always see it, to be honest, because they're disgusting and horrible, and I hate them.
It does.
I was gonna say that's a good visual.
It's horrible. Hate pig teeth.
It is, yeah.
Hate pig teeth so much.
Teeth are just gross. Period.
Yeah, not a fan.
End of story.
Don't like it.
My cat had a tooth removed. Did not like it. Still have the damn thing because it's so creepy. I can't even get to touch it to throw it away. Yeah, it's weird. What happens? Cool story. What happens when you find a bone that you can't tell what it's from? And usually I understand that that's like a fragment. You throw it away. Good. Do you really?
No, God, no. You think about throwing it away, and then you fantasize for like a solid 5 minutes about like just trampling it, throwing it into garbage, stuff like that. But at least for me, especially. Oh, sorry, Simona. Do you want to go?
No, it's like that meme that was on the internet like a few months/years ago, or they're like, like throwing all the papers in the bin. No, just kidding. I need to pass. So a bit like that. Just throwing all in the bin. No, I need to report on this. Takes it out of the.
Well, it's sadly it's something I'm doing right now because the assemblage I'm looking at is mostly fragmented bone, and half of it is just like you can't ID it. I don't have time to really sit down and try to figure out. To be honest, so I'm doing thousands of bones right now for my research. But I mean, usually people have like ways of just kind of at least being able to mark it down. So like I usually have it down as unidentified fragment, unidentified mammal, medium-sized unidentified mammal, things like that, or something like long bone fragment, just skull, if I can kind of figure out it's a piece of skull and I just can't figure out where it is, which happens all the time because skull sucks.
That's true. Skull bones are interesting because they're all weird shaped.
Yeah, I have a lot of my friends are human bone specialists, so they can like basically be like, oh, that's the the frontal, and I'm like,
yeah, but they only have one species to work on.
Yeah, they're cowards. Sure. You heard it here, folks. Human bone specialists are cowards because they only do one species.
I just want to point out the amount of shade that Alex has been throwing this entire episode.
I'm sorry. I'm just person. I am from New York.
It's that in our podcast as well. I think like there's like poor like pottery and CBM experts that are just probably like sending hate mail to the podcast as we speak.
Yeah, basically, it's Simona says something very knowledgeable and intelligent, and then I go and I hate it.
And Alex is like, I'm here to balance this out.
Yeah, so I slightly lost it with the Romans because I really don't like the Romans. But but because a lot of my work, like in Britain, most of what you find on a commercial site is Roman. It's like everything is Roman here, so right. I know more than I'd want to about Roman archaeology, when I'm really not that interested about the Romans.
So when you find something in situ or while you are digging, what do you do with it, Simona?
We get...
I mean, aside from bag it and tag it and send it back to the lab. But...
Just gets bagged by context, but I guess like 'cause we do it slightly different than you do in the US, because I think you do mostly test pits, don't you?
Yes.
Well, with us, we
do mostly survey, yeah.
Right, because with us, because of course in commercial archaeology it's ahead of development, so you have your area of 3-4 hectares or whatever, and we actually strip it down with machinery. So we go down by horizons. So like you take out the topsoil, the subsoil, and then you get down to what we call the archaeological natural, and then from there we see what we call.
That's only the first 300 years, right?
Essentially, so like we're looking at anything earlier than that, essentially. So when you get to the archaeological natural, right, you'll be able to see features. So you'll be able to see, I don't know, say the natural is just a nice orangey sands, but then you see a random grey and black things in there. And that's your archaeological features. So you will have, pits and ditches and enclosures, and we'll dig them. But usually you put a slot through, say there's a ditch that's like 10 meters long, and you put a 1 meter slot through it, and you actually follow the edges and dig it out completely.
All right. Well,
so like you get the negative feature.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what we do when we get to a phase 3. But we don't have 300 years of history all stacked on top of each other, so we can put test pits in and not find anything. So
This all means
it's just the frequency with which you find things comparatively. I mean, just
I sit at a
also
desk.
we have a lot more land here.
Yeah, I sit at a desk all the time, and that's what I do. And I look at bones.
But you're the lab person. You're the person we send the bags to. That's why you have a bag full of 400 bone fragments and I don't.
But you're inside and you're warm.
That's also true.
You haven't been to my office.
No, you're warm, Alex. You're warm.
Okay, I guess I am. Is that a threat?
How many layers do you wear when you go to work, Alex?
Well, I do have a blanket in the office, so...
I want a blanket on site.
Oh, God. A warm blanket, like one of those heated ones? Yes. I want a heated cloak.
Now, I've got little, microwavable rice pouches that I've sewn myself.
Yes.
So I made a lot of, little heat pads, and I've made them for, everyone at work on my site. That was, a few years ago now, so everyone would, had their hands in their pockets, because they had the little hand warmers.
I feel like that's the perfect Christmas... we're going to have a Christmas gift episode. I feel like that's a good Christmas gift for field workers is the microwavable heating pad.
Or just take us inside for the love of God, takes us inside.
The ground is frozen. Quit making me dig. Off topic again. Thank you guys so much.
Again, can't relate.
Now Alex is just like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's perfectly fine.
Sorry, I'm gonna keep PC and not insult you for being inside.
Oh Lord. All right, let's go to break real quick. When we come back, I'd like to talk about Man Bear Pig.
Nice.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
Back to school savings are officially in session at Tanger Outlets. Shop tax-free August 2nd through 6th and save up to 70% off the latest school styles. The best of apparel, footwear, accessories, and more. Save at Nike Factory Store, American Eagle, Gap Outlet, Crocs, Under Armour, Banana Republic Factory, and hundreds more. There's always something happening. Discover the latest fun and events all season long. Tanger Outlets, your savings destination.
Hi everyone, and we are back, and I'm still talking with Simona and Alex, our zoo archaeologists who do all the things with the cryptid bones and real animal bones too. But this is Archaeological Fantasies, so we have to talk about weird stuff. Man Bear Pig. Tell me about where Man Bear Pig is. Where are you hiding him?
I'm desperately trying to figure out something funny.
Insert pun here.
Basically, yeah.
So, but there's, I'm sure anybody who watches South Park is aware of the joke of Man Bear Pig. I mean, it's been around for years now. I don't even remember when they made the joke the first time. It's a meme and all that. But unbeknownst to them, I think, there's actually a historical record of Man Bear Pig. Alex, do you want to tell us about it?
I mean, you probably know it better than I do, to be honest.
Well, so you brought up P.T. Barnum earlier in the show, and it's perfect because back in the Victorian era, which, again, it's usually the Victorians' fault, there was... Now, this is an established fact that we have on this show. If something weird has happened, it's usually because of the Victorians. Mm-hmm. But the P.T. Barnum and his sideshows, and other shows like P.T. Barnum's, because he wasn't the only person doing sideshows, but they would have a exhibit called the Pig-Faced Lady. And what the pig-faced lady was a drunken or stoned bear that they would shave and then dress up in women's clothing and tie to a chair so that it couldn't attack people. And then they would tell everyone that it was a pig-faced lady. And the history of this pig-faced lady comes from several different what we would recognize as urban legends now that used to go around of a hybrid woman or hybrid lady who was born with the face of a pig. So she would be very elegant and very rich, but she would be hideous. And so it would be one of those stories of like who's the man who would marry the pig-faced lady and gain all the wealth and the nicety of having a hybrid wife, but she's ugly. Who can face that?
And here I am today on the podcast.
But there's some interesting things. There's a reason why they used bears and not an actual pig. And that's because bears have a striking resemblance to humans in their posture when they're standing and they're sitting, and also in some of their extremities.
Yeah, definitely the phalanges are very I could see how someone who maybe isn't trained really to differentiate could be like, oh, that's a human,
What's a phalange?
Your fingy, your little fingers, and also toes, but mostly fingers.
I think bare feet kind of look like human hands too.
They do a bit, yeah. I mean, I don't run into bears as much because I'm working off the coast of Scotland. Would love to run into a bear, not a live one, preferably, but
I hear it's an experience, not one I would like to have.
Yeah.
But I have come in contact with bear remains, and they're very striking. I remember going to a university and they had a frozen bear hand in their lab, and it still had some flesh on it, so it was super creepy. And yeah, when she first pulled it out, she showed it to us and passed it around, and we were just like, "Why do you have a frozen human hand?" And she was just like, "It's not a human hand." And so then, of course, we all stood around for like 20 minutes trying to figure out what it was. And she's like, "It's a bear." And then we all felt like idiots. But yeah, so bears, there's skeletal remains of a bear can look very human-like.
Yeah.
But there's other animals that pop up that way. We were talking earlier about pig teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes their phalanges come out. Their little finger and toe bones kind of their toe bones look very human, I think.
I mean, I would say that most animal phalanges in general, like sometimes, especially if they're not totally fused or if they're fragmented, it might take me a second or two just to be like, is that, like, I feel like the phalanges for sure are definitely the closest you get in most animals to human bones. Of course, there's some animals that have way closer. Like, I'm thankful every day that I don't work on a site that has like monkey remains or other kind of primates there, because that would be a nightmare.
No, and I guess like incisors tend to be in like your front teeth can be misleading sometimes if you're not trained. So if you'll see like a juvenile sheep or goat incisors, it's like if you're trained, like they don't really look human, but the shape is like at the end of the day, it's the same tooth and it has exactly the same function, so it will look similar.
Yeah.
So I've had that with people before, like, oh, I think I found a human tooth. Be like, no, that's a sheep or a goat, but that's another can of worms.
Well, no, I was just going to ask, like, how often when you're out working do you encounter bones that people think are human? Because here in America, we have very strict laws about what happens when you find human remains on anything, survey or a site or during excavation. It effectively will shut the project down until someone can come out there and figure out what's going on. Is that the same over in Britain?
It's not quite like
UK?
that. So, of course, if you find human remains, you absolutely cannot touch them until you get a license from, I can't remember what regulatory body is, if it's the government or the police will get involved depending on in what strata it is. So if it's likely to be quite recent, of course, the police gets involved. But more often than not, it isn't the case. But you need to get a license for the removal of human remains. So until then, like the site doesn't get shut down. But of course, all the burial features, you can't touch them until you have a license for it.
So you just kind of like rope it off and just ignore it until somebody official comes out?
Usually just let you get a license issued or someone official come out. Usually it doesn't take that long normally, but it'll just, of course, that you don't touch. You just focus on other things that don't have any human remains. And to be fair, it's quite rare. We don't get human remains all that often. I guess you tend to more in urban centres. So I guess in people that do like urban archaeology, you're more likely to stumble upon a cemetery. But where I like in the rest of the country is mostly like rural archaeology, and you'll have like old settlements and farmsteads, and you're not really going to find burials as often. So you almost get an issue because you have a lot of people that specialise in human remains, but there's not enough human remains that actually pop up. If that makes sense.
Do you? Oh, no. Do you have people come up to you when you're out working And they bring you bones?
No, that's never happened, thankfully.
I wish I could say that.
I mean, I do, but that's because I'm usually, when I excavate, it's part of a bigger project, and I'm the faunal bone specialist on site, so I will usually get bones of, just like, is this human? Is this not? And after a while, I usually end up kind of teaching everyone else on site.
Oh, no, but I mean, I'll get that from colleagues, but I won't have members of the public just stumbling onto site with bones. Oh, no, I'll get that from colleagues asking me, like, what sort of bones they've got and what not. Not just random members of the public that walk around. Hello, I've got all these bones.
Actually, no, I do. I do get that from, now that I'm more on social media more openly as a zooarchaeologist, I do get random messages from like people being like, hey, do you know what this bone is? And it's usually me going, man, that'd be great if you had a better picture of that.
Yeah, I get a lot of people asking me to identify artifacts for them, and I'm just like, I don't know. That's not how that works.
No, I got that a few times on the internet, but with flint, be like, oh, is this a stone tool? Is this flint work? To be like, but if there's one thing I know absolutely nothing about is flint. I'm not even going to pretend to know anything about flint. It's like, well,
you can send your short questions to me. I can help you out with that. It's one of
those things that I wish I knew more about it, and I've read about it, so I know the theory of it. But it's one of those things that I feel like bones. Unless you work with it on a daily basis, you're not really going to get the hang of it.
Right.
So, like, because I don't really encounter work flint, it's is this worked? Probably.
But see, you have an upside on me, like the whole idea of cut marks on bones being, you can identify cut marks, correct? Like you can identify pathology and like tool marks.
Yeah. For the most part, I would say Simone is better at pathology than I am. I'm very not great at pathology.
With pathology, usually the go-to is just like recurring infection, like chronic infection. It's like,
oh, I just write bone growth. Weird bone growth, because that's the ones that I can notice. Like, either it's a bone growth or like
with pathology, like a lot of the pathologies won't actually transfer onto the bone. So a lot of things with lost we'll never know.
Yeah.
But then bone has only two ways to react to illness. It either grows some more bone or reduces the bone that's already there. But then the same marks can be left by a plethora of different diseases. So, like, it could be this, or there's 3 million other things, but it's likely arthritis. We're just going to say arthritis.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's probably just an old animal. Well, I mean, yeah, we should. What I was kind of going at was, like, how many animal bones do you encounter? But I guess since you guys don't, like, have the general public walking up to you with random bones, apparently as frequently as I do, asking you, oh, I found human bones. And then you find out that it's just like where a deer died and they've picked up the femur.
I mean, I definitely get people like that I'm working with do that constantly because, like I said, there are points where it does get a little dicey. Like, I mean, there was actually a bone that we could not agree on whether or not it was human or animal. I was very adamant that it was deer. They were very adamant that it was human. We actually ended up sending it off to get aDNA or ancient DNA done on it to verify what it is. Actually, no, not aDNA. We got Zooms done, which is zooarchaeology by mass spectrometry, which looks at different protein, the way that the protein are arranged, I believe. I don't know all the science crap, but it just shows like how it can get so dicey that you might actually have to turn to a different method to kind of differentiate.
So what you're saying is you can send a bone to be chemically analyzed to find out what it is, though.
Yeah, like, so two of the big ones are Zooms and aDNA. They do different things, but, for example, in my work, I've actually had to send bones to people who do both of those analysis because Zooms is very good for very general, like, this is this kind of, like what I was saying, we weren't sure if it was a human or a deer. Turned out to be a horse rib. So we were both wrong, but I was closer. So that's all that matters. But when you need stuff that's a bit more, a little bit more complicated, a bit more specific. So like I have some canine bones that I'm not 100% sure if they're domesticated dog or if they're wolf. So we had to send that to aDNA because they can find the genetic markers that will show what it is. It's all the science stuff that I actually don't know anything about, which is why I send it to other people.
But the important thing is you were right.
Yeah, no, that's the important thing. And, I will lord that over my supervisor forever because he may be a professor, but I knew it.
But I was right. That's funny. Simona, you were saying something?
Was I?
You can tell that it's late for you guys and that, like, I missed lunch, so...
It's just not great all around, really.
Just like,
We're all
I'm not
suffering in our own ways.
don't know masses about the sciencey bits around it because I'm very much of the give me a hole and I'll dig you a hole sort of thing. I can tell you a little bit about bone. But I think, no, I guess, there's all this science stuff to,
That's awesome.
I guess, find out more about the species, but that doesn't always tend to, I guess it depends a lot on what your research questions are and how pressing it is. Because normally, like, if you're unsure, unidentified mammal, medium size.
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess from our end, we're just interested on, were they eating it or were they not? Where, Alex, you're getting a lot more fine-tuned.
Yeah, so I have to actually beg people for money so I can do this stuff because it's expensive.
I have to beg people for money, too, but they call it my income.
Yeah, I feel
But
that as well.
I guess what you do, Alex, is a bit more specific because I guess because I think like the site you've been working on has got some ritual connotations.
It's got some weird crap is basically what it is.
And a weird mix-up of species and whatnot, while like normal in the day-to-day basis, you'll just be like your normal farm animals.
I mean, this is something I can actually talk about, which is that we had what people on site thought was a human bone, and they brought it back to me, and I looked at it and I was like, guys, that's a bird bone. And it was like a foot long, so that's something we're still trying to figure out what it is, but again, it's like, especially when it comes to size, because it did, like, if I didn't know anything about animal bones, if I looked at it, I would have been like, yeah, that's a human bone, just because size-wise, it looked perfect to be like a femur or something, but it was actually a bird bone.
How'd you identify it as a bird bone?
Birds have a specific type of tibia called tibia tarsus, so it's slightly more, it's fused together, so it looks a lot different than human bones. I'm really bad when it comes to describing it, which is why I have Simona on the podcast, because like my brain works with the way my brain works is like it's got a curvy end, so it's different.
To be fair, that's exactly what I do as well, because like in the metabodials, it's got the roly bits at the end.
Yeah, that's what I do too. Like it's roly bits, and then one side is either a circle or it's a half circle. It works. It works.
I mean, I feel like that's descriptive. Whereas compare that to like a human bone, where it's they're kind of flat.
Yeah, and annoying. So
like a tabletop.
Yeah, I don't like them.
Aww.
Hot take. Don't like them because they're very confusing to me.
I mean, how do you deal with your own skeleton then? You wake up in the morning and you're just like, ugh, my skeleton.
I avoid it. I actually, I'm in a state of kind of anxiety where my skeleton leaves my body constantly.
I have skeleton denial. I don't have one.
No.
I just call it all my flesh prison.
So sad. let her out.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so that's great. So, okay, what is, because we've only got a few minutes, so let's just throw some fun out there. What is the oldest bone you've ever identified? Simona, go.
Oh, pass.
Pass. Alex?
Oh, come on, that's not fair. Well, I actually work mostly with later prehistoric bones, so basically every bone I work with is pretty old, but I guess technically that would make any of the Neolithic stuff that I've found, including a entire Neolithic cow that was buried underneath a building up in the Orkneys, which are islands in the north of Scotland.
It was buried under a modern building or under a...
Oh, no. A Pictish building. So, like, it was around, like, Pictish, so those were, like, the people who were indigenous to, I guess what you would call, quote-unquote, Celtic people. I was excavating a settlement there, and they used to bury their animals underneath their houses. So we found an entire in situ, like, articulate cow skeleton.
Well, an annoying bit of information on Roman archaeology: the Romans did it with dogs.
Huh.
Oh.
But dogs underneath houses and fetal pigs.
That's gross.
Sometimes mixed with neonatal human babies.
Interesting.
Romans are weird.
Because Romans.
Because Romans. That's all you know.
Okay, I was with you until you got... No, I don't want to know. Well, that's another episode. Yuck. Okay, so what's the hardest bone to identify? Like, when you find it, It's one of those bones where it's become so difficult that you just know it when you see it now. Like fish ear bones, those exist.
Just
Yeah.
fish.
Yeah, fish. I did
Just
my whole master's project was on fish, so
They are
I know it front to back now.
the fish, the fish ear bone and the frog jaw. I think were my two like what the fuck moments.
I've never worked with amphibians and never want to. Thank you and amen.
It was
God
it was
bless.
cool though. I mean, it was a neat little bone. I mean, you knew it was a bone because it stuck to you when you licked it. But yeah, it was small and I didn't know what the hell it was.
Nah, I'm good. I got fish. I got so much fish to worry about right now that I don't need any other small bones. Like, I'm good.
So, okay, last question. What would you like to find? What's your holy grail bone item or skeletal item?
I would like to find a bone that when I opened it up, it had $300,000, which is just enough to cover my student loans.
Pardon my alarm, I apologize. Okay, so the money bone, we're looking for that. Simona, what's your
Please.
holy grail bone?
Probably an articulated cat skeleton.
Articulated?
Oh, that would be cool.
Cat skeleton.
Do you want somebody to like mail it to you in a box?
No, there's a reason for that because the introduction of domestic cats to this country is a bit of an interesting thing. Of course, like we have our own wild cats, but they're not the species that was domesticated because our domestic cats comes from the African subspecies of the wild cat. So then it was at some point brought over sort of to various parts of the world, including Britain. And now, according to written sources, it was the Romans who brought them over. But really, we don't have that proven for sure. And also because cats are so scarce in the archaeological record, you barely ever find cats. Like, they get a little bit more common from the medieval period. But before then, I think in the Iron Age, we have one site, possibly a few more, but I can only think of one really where they found a couple of juveniles. That's about it for Britain. So,
Really?
and because they're so rare, and I guess that also has deterred a lot of people from doing research on it because there's so little a sample to work with. So really,
Right.
I'd like to find an Iron Age articulated cat skeleton, and I could,
Iron Age articulated cat
and I would
skeleton.
retire
That's-
happily.
Would you retire? All right, we're gonna make this happen for Simona. Everybody, put your happy thoughts together and help Simona find her Iron Age
Yay.
cat skeleton because I think that's a little bit more probable than the money bone. So let's throw that out there.
Don't kill my dreams.
Sorry.
like this.
Sorry. It's what I do. Sharp rocks the reality. Ladies, thank you very much for coming onto the show with me. It has been a pleasure meeting both of you, and I'm just glad to talk bones because I don't really get to do it very often. So again, good luck with your podcast. Before you go off air, tell us how we can find it and what to expect when we listen.
So we are on the Archaeology Podcast Network. So you can find us on archaeologypodcastnetwork.com. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, for the most part, I think. So yeah, and we're also on Twitter, at ArchaeoAnimals.
At ArchaeoAnimals.
If you want to tweet us angrily about how I hate pottery and stuff like that.
And we're just disenchanted with life. Although we do also have an Archaeoanimals hashtag. We have an Archaeoanimals hashtag where we do like to post little bits about the archaeology of animals, but also we like to use it for people to ask questions, but also like for early career researchers or any stage in career researchers. If you want to share your research on animal bones or just your interest, feel free to just, post, use the hashtag, and, we'll say hey, retweet it, and
So
share the animal bone love sort of thing.
one more time, what's the hashtag?
Archaeoanimals, so exactly the same as the podcast name.
All right, cool. So, all right, so you guys are on Twitter. You guys do you have a blog component, or is it just the podcast right now?
It's just a podcast now, but we also have a Facebook page for our podcast, which is, again, ArchaeoAnimals.
Yeah, but I guess on the Archaeology Podcast Network website, like sort of in the Archaeoanimals page, you actually do get all the show notes and the silly amount of pictures that I add to every single episode.
Ooh, I like pictures, though. Well, ladies, thank you very much, and good luck with your podcast, and thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for listening to Archaeo Animals. Please subscribe and rate the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. You can find us on Twitter at Archaeo Animals. Also, the views expressed on the podcast are those of ourselves, the hosts and guests, and do not necessarily represent those of our institution, employers, and the Archaeology Podcast Network. Thanks for listening.
This show is produced and recorded by the Archaeology Podcast Network, Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle, in Reno, Nevada, at the Reno Collective.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.
Thanks again for listening to this episode and for supporting the Archaeology Podcast Network. If you want these shows to keep going, consider becoming a member for just $7.99 US a month. That's cheaper than a venti quad eggnog latte. Go to archpodnet.com/members for more info.